Well, it's been a while since we've done one of these, hasn't it? I mean, the site looks entirely different. Slimebeast.com for all your shitty story needs. Anyway, this is Better Than Abandoned by Disney, and I'm going to be talking about another story of mine that I believe is better than the only story people know me for. So this is Tea and Necromancy. It's kind of an interesting title. I think I've seen it used a couple other times. I'm not sure if it was after I posted this or before, but I like the title. I think it works well because it's very, like, posh, because you're having tea, and it's very intriguing because there's necromancy involved. What could be going on in this story? One must find out by clicking the title. But yeah, this is a story that sort of launched my interest in what I've called keyhole fiction. Keyhole fiction, for anybody who hasn't seen my stupid video about it, is basically writing a story that takes place in another world, takes place in another reality, takes place in a different plane of existence. You know, things are strange, things are different, things are weird, things are unlike what you know in our world, to some degree. But you don't do a lot of world building. You don't do a lot of history of what happens there. You don't do how things got that way. You don't do a bunch of explanation of what everything means. You just sort of throw people into the deep end, and you write a story taking place in that alternate reality, a short story, and you don't really explain, you know, everything that's going on. You kind of put in some context clues. You put in terms and phrases and words to try to give people basically an idea of what's going on, and they can sort of put the clues together themselves and figure out this alternate world you've created. The short version, the too long didn't read version, is that it's minimalist world building. You're doing very little and giving very little, but you're building another world. So yeah, Tea and Necromancy is a story that I wrote from the perspective of somebody giving a speech. Now what's going on in this story is a magic user of some sort is giving a speech to a room full of other magic users from around the world. So this is like a gathering. This is like a convention. This is like a PAX East of magic. Maybe not literally, but you know, it's just a group of like all the magic users in the world, all the most powerful ones, and you sort of pick that up throughout the story. And as I said, this all takes place in the form of a speech, so we don't hear from anyone else but the person giving the speech. And we don't, you know, get any descriptions of any of the people listening. We just basically have to pick up from the story who everybody is and what's going on. And it has a nice little twist ending that I won't spoil for you. But yeah, I think this is a really interesting story, and I think it's better than Abandoned by Disney because it launched sort of a term that I came up with, the keyhole fiction term, which, you know, nobody has to use, and whatever, I'll use it, and it could just be all mine. But yeah, it sort of launched this idea of writing a story about another world and creating a reality around very minimal details. And, you know, usually I would think like in some kind of strange format. But yeah, very loose definition, you know, use it however you feel, I don't care. But yeah, so this is like actually one of my favorite stories that I've written. And it introduces a ton of characters that we're given very little information about. So one of the things I tried to do was make their names descriptive of them. So like, you know, if you had a... let's say you have in mind a character who's a magician, and he's a stage magician, and what he does is he invites people up on his stage. He gets a, you know, beautiful... audience member to volunteer to come up and be part of his magic trick, and then what he does is he takes out like the multicolored linked scarves and wraps them around the person's neck and strangles them to death and eats their soul and disappears. You know, like if you had some kind of strange character like that, you could say, okay, we're not going to give any one of those details to people. We're not going to tell anybody that he's a magician. We're not going to tell anybody that he's a stage magician, like a performer. We're not going to tell anybody that he strangles people, but we're just going to tell people his name, and people can sort of infer that from the name or not, and you just sort of have your own, you know, idea of what that character is. So you might do that, and you might say, this character is named the Great Hocus Chocus. That's kind of a silly example, but you figure the Great, it's like a magician, it's a revered celebrity magician. The Great is usually used for that type of thing. Hocus, its name rhymes with Hocus Pocus, so you get kind of like that campy feeling. Maybe he's like a stage performer. Hocus Pocus, Alakazam, that type of thing. And then you say Chocus. Well, I guess he chokes people. So that's like the type of thing I'm talking about. And that's kind of a very silly example. It's sort of outlandish. It's not really in step with what I've done here. But, it gives you an idea of what I'm talking about with giving a character a name and trying to make you know something about that character or envision that character just by the name and the details included in the name. Very minimalist, very, very scant information that hopefully people can do something with. Now, if you think something totally different from what I intended, that's fine. To each his own. The story is written twice, once by the author and once by the reader in his head. I don't know if that's a quote from somebody else that I stole or if I came up with that on the spot, but whatever. And yeah, so this is a interesting story. I'll link in the description below. Very short, very easy to read, and it comes with a bonus poem at the end about 2 of the characters. I just felt like writing a bonus poem. It just popped into my head about 2 of the characters mentioned in the story. So yeah, it's got magic, it's got intrigue, it's got deception, it's got very little detail. Ready to be a Sony Pictures film? I don't know. But yeah, and you could find this on Slimebeast.com along with a bunch of other stuff. There's not much more to say about this story, just because I don't want to ruin it. I want people to read this. If you are going to read this, if you are going to take the time to read it, I want you to experience it as you go, and I want you to form your own ideas about who these characters are and what they're doing and so on and so forth. And who the narrator is, because we never really know who the narrator is. I will spoil that much. There's no detail about the narrator other than how they speak and what they say. And you can sort of draw your own conclusions, usually, from how people speak and what they say. But yeah, maybe in the comments below, if you want to discuss keyhole fiction, or if you want to discuss anything like that, ask any questions. Is this story keyhole fiction? Is that story keyhole fiction? We can talk about it. Basically, it's a very loose term. Just for giving people very little detail about your world building. So yeah. I don't know if I would ever return to something like this. T in Necromancy 2. The ending is pretty... It stands up on its own, I think, as a solo story. I do like what I created here, but I think I probably would never actually touch it again because I think that would ruin the original story. So yeah, T in Necromancy, linked in the description below. Check it out. I think there's a reading of it online somewhere that I liked on YouTube. If you absolutely have to do that and don't want to read it yourself. But yeah, my name is Slimebeast, Slimebeast.com, and you can order Dandyland on Amazon. Amazon.com. Only, what did I put, $2.99? It's a complete rewrite. Well, not complete rewrite. It's a partial rewrite of the Abandoned by Disney stories. Look for it in your grocer's freezer.